Welcome back, Reg audience. Today we're talking about the digital workplace vision. What does that mean? Productivity. How the people that you supply with technology can work better, work more efficiently, be happy. Well, these guys will find out what that's going to be about anyway. But there's a lot of stuff to get through today. And so let's have a look who's going to help us get through it. Notice I am top of I've been here 7 years and finally I get to the top of the list, but you know who I am, that doesn't matter. So joining us from Intel, Malcolm, welcome to the studio.
Thank you very much.
It's a nice studio.
It is, yeah, very nice.
We're delighted to have you here. What do you do at Intel that's relevant to this?
That's a good question. So officially I'm what's called an enterprise technology specialist, which means I spend my day job visiting with a whole wide range of UK businesses, financial sector, public sector, retail, talking with the end user compute teams about where the technology is going, what to take advantage of and strategies for delivering the digital workplace.
So you get to tell them the stuff that's coming in the future. You're the sort of future person.
A little bit. It's a little bit of today and a little bit of where things are going. So bit of both.
Are you going to spill some secrets today?
We'll see.
Yes,
Watch this space.
Let's work on him.
Now,
and also from Hewlett Packard is Jordan. Hello, Jordan. Welcome to the studio.
Hi, how are you?
I'm well, thank you very much. I hope you're well too.
Good, thank you.
Now, I have to say that you are from Hewlett Packard and not HP today.
That's right.
Because?
Because on November 1st, HP will be splitting into two companies. One focused on PCs and printers, the other focused on enterprise technologies and services.
And you're in the enterprise technologies and services bit?
On November 1st, Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
Hewlett Packard Enterprise. You must be delighted you're in that bit, not in the other bit.
I couldn't possibly say, but I'm excited to be part of an organisation that
can tell by your face.
to be part of an organisation that's delivering great outcomes for our enterprise customers.
That also means today, Reg audience, of course, we always like your questions, but if you've got any about toner or anything like that, not your man. Different Regcast. So great, thank you very much. And from our old mates Freeform Dynamics, Dale. Dale, you were telling me it's your first time in the studio.
Yes.
This studio, since we changed the studio. Yeah. We've had Tony around a bit, yeah.
I know, yeah, it's very nice actually, isn't it?
It's all right,
very laid back. And,
we're laid back people. Yeah. I mean, normally we have Tony down that end, and I'm a bit discomforted by having you in my face. So just if there's going to be any trouble, then
we've got a lot of hard stairs going back.
Oh dear. Okay, so it's the usual drill. If you've got any questions, ask them, and they come out on my little tablet in front of me. I ask them to the guys. Don't complain afterwards if we didn't cover the thing that you're interested in. If you didn't ask a question, you've got to take the opportunity to do that. You ask your questions, I'll ask them to these guys. I'll try and keep them honest. We've got the slides. They can be downloaded. And also we've got some links and further reading for you if you're interested in this, but you haven't heard enough. Let's get on with this now, Dale. So you've been talking to the Reg audience about this sort of thing. What have they told you?
Well, we did a survey of the Reg readers about two months ago, looking at infrastructure in general and infrastructure readiness for the future. So we had about a 3-year time horizon that we were looking at, and we asked a bunch of questions about when you look around you, all your servers and your desktops and everything else, all of your infrastructure, and you look at the kind of things that are coming down the pipe from the business and the kind of things that users and business managers are asking for at the moment. How ready do you really think you are to deal with some of that stuff? And that's really what this slide shows. I pulled out just 3 bars here from a whole long list of things that we looked at. These are things to do with end user computing. And if you were to summarize it, then you probably say that people are, generally speaking, all right at the moment, but they know that they've got some work to do to be able to deal with it.
They're not going to be all right for the whole of these 3 years.
So they're not complacent. Some feel they're in a good position, but most don't. And the kind of areas that we pulled out here, the mobile side of things, remote access side of things, the mobility side is pretty important. The whole device area, bring your own device, that kind of thing. But also generally workforce collaboration, the productivity side, whether it's new ways of communicating, new ways of collaborating, and so on. all of that stuff, and you can see there that's probably one of the biggest gaps in terms of where people feel that they've got a little bit of effort to put in.
So guys, when you're out talking to your customers, do you get the same kind of reaction, Jordan?
Absolutely. I think our customers are seeing that they've made real progress in the past few years. You know, the movement that they've made into consumerization of IT, BYO making more use of these great technologies that are coming from the cloud or coming from the consumer landscape. They've made real strides in that over the past few years. But getting that adopted and well used and delivering real outcomes, real transformative business outcomes, I think is the next step that our customers are looking for.
Yeah. Malcolm, what about you?
Likewise, we're seeing sort of quite a growth of people becoming more mobile in the way they're working, the devices they're using. BYOD, yeah, maybe I think that's plateauing a little bit. Sort of thing. It's just the sort of ad hoc feedback I'm seeing from the customers I talked to. It was very hot topic going back a few months. Nowadays, a lot in the world of phones and tablets, but the mainstream compute laptops and so on are still largely IT supplied. But certainly this whole thing of better ways to collaborate together, to work together, and new ways that the technology can help people do that is a common theme.
Yeah. One thing about this, just before we leave it, we've been banging on about these subjects forever. Is this, have people just not solved them, or have they just got higher expectations?
No, I think there's a couple of things. Just on the BYOD thing, interestingly, the Reg readers have been really rock solid consistent on this. They've basically said BYOD is important for a relatively small minority of users in most cases. So I think a lot of people have run away with the fact that yes, BYOD is important in some cases.
Everyone's got to have it all the time.
And no one has ever said that we've ever spoken to on the Reg side of things. So it is interesting. But it needs to be part of the mix is what we're hearing, and that hasn't gone away either. So people haven't sort of moved away from that. But generally speaking, Tim, I think it's more a case of, with the end user computing side, a lot of people have focused on keeping up as opposed to getting ahead. And a lot of that's because they've got other things to get on with. They're pretty busy in general, and if it's not broken, don't fix it kind of thing. But the other thing as well is, we talked about BYOD being all right for some kinds of users and not others. For a lot of users, they much prefer familiarity and stability than change and newness. That's the reality. We go on about users' expectations changing, and that's absolutely true for certain segments of certain types of user. But there are other users where you just want to give them something that works, it's familiar, they can get on with their jobs, and they don't want the technology to get in the way. And that's why they put off moving forward quite often.
Yes, that's always the problem I have when people talk about sort of productivity. Is a lot that for a lot of organisations, productivity is really organisational, structural. It's things like that. It's got nothing to do with some of these. But so we're talking about a set of people with particular needs. And we kind of know who those are.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Other graph.
But to be honest, the sort of people we're talking about that do worry about these things and do care about the kind of technology they use, we've done a lot of research on this, and we've looked at various correlations by job title and job function and all sorts of other things. Actually, the one thing that it correlates with is usually pay scale. So it's the more important people, the people that you're paying more, and the people that are probably contributing more directly in their roles to the business. Those are the guys that really we're talking about when these are guys in meetings, these are guys on the road, these are the guys that are can be enabled through technology. So even though that might be a relatively small number of users in your organisation, you really need to care about them. And they're the ones that are probably quite opinionated anyway. So
well, they can get you fired as well, can't they?
Exactly. So just on this chart, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I think a lot of we've covered this before on Regcast, but we're hearing constantly users having more of a say. Those users in particular having more of a say in the technology agenda, and a lot more freedom and flexibility. And the last bar on this particular chart we're looking at highlights security as well, because quite often if you are going to do things in new and different ways, security is an easy one to sort of fall down the cracks if you're not careful.
We've had whole Regcasts about security, but we are going to get that to later. And so
it's critical, absolutely critical to consider.
Yeah, absolutely. So we will spend a little bit of time on that. Good. Malcolm, this is how you talking about the workplace. Is that your workplace you've got on that picture there?
Nearly. It's kind of, yeah. Yes, very nice. The world is certainly changing, yes.
Intel's changing. I remember from the first time I went to visit, it used to be a horrible place.
Well, I should say, actually, and I won't name any names because it's a public thing, but as I said, I visit a lot of UK enterprise customers and even companies that you might say have got an image of being slightly staid and sort of, not forward-thinking, not Google-type customers. The workplace environment is changing across the board at different paces in different companies, and I think probably everyone said the world of turning up at your desk 9 to 5, doing your job, going home. That's increasingly becoming the exception rather than the norm. People now much more mobile, collaborate in small groups, do a project with this group, then move to another group, and that way of working is changing. And this kind of slide here, like that, is the workplace is changing to suit that.
What's driving that? Because I mean, on one hand, there's that narrative that says this is very, this is very productive, and it's. There's the other thing where people think, well, I can close the whole building if I get, if I get people to do it, including. Actually, some of your competitors that I can think of, who've managed to do that quite successfully by saying to people, go home.
Yeah, well, interesting. Flexible working is the official term for it, which is often put out as ways to increase productivity, make people more creative, and so on, which is all good stuff. But there is another narrative, as you correctly put out. This is a way to save costs because we can close buildings down if people are not always in the office, and that then plays into a lot of the tech discussion because then people want to hot desks because they no longer have a fixed desk and the technology needs to enable some of those type capabilities.
And we're starting to see that narrative change a little bit actually as well, and organisations inviting people back into the office in order to change the way that they're collaborative and productive together. But that's starting to have to be an encouragement. What services are you offering me as an individual to risk the commute and brave the hour to get into the office, and the response from organisations is to say, well, this is the environment that we want to create for you to allow you to work better with other people face to face.
That's a great new world. You have to be bribed to come into the office. It was pretty ugly coming here to London this morning.
What's in it for me, you say? And they say to you, what's in it for you is you get to keep your job. But I mean, Dale, in all of this, there has to be some central focus. There has to be some reason for doing things. It would be a very bad set of changes and innovations if it were just to keep people happy at various places in various ways.
Yeah, I mean, there are good business reasons for doing this, and what's interesting, when I first saw this chart, and whose chart is this?
This was
yours, Malcolm. When I saw reduced cost on the left and not on the right, I thought that was a bit odd because I've spoken to lots of people who've been through this kind of transformation, and actually they tell me they save huge amounts of money for the kind of reasons we've just been talking about. That wasn't necessarily the prime objective, but it was certainly part of the business case. The other thing as well, I've heard people say, we need to drive just a new way of working, a new attitude sometimes, a new approach to doing product management, to doing to managing customers, engaging with customers, sales even. And actually, if you shake things up, you know what human beings are like. If you change some things, it makes some other things easier to change as well because you just move people out of their comfort zone. And actually changing the environment, changing the communication model, changing ways of working, sometimes is a good enabler for introducing new working practices,
Get
new
rid
processes.
Of inertia
Exactly.
Because that's the problem with these things if they're half-heartedly done.
Exactly.
Is people say, well, we've got some new stuff over there, I'm not using it.
And engagement is becoming significant as well. The old adage of attracting and retaining talent. But it's becoming more and more important as we need to attract people out of other organisations or out of university to a workplace that feels engaging. And we're seeing research coming out that's saying engaged employees are significantly more productive and creative, which can give people a creative or competitive edge.
I mean, the earliest research I've read on this, you probably know it's more me, Tim, back in the 50s, happy users are more productive users. It's as simple as that. And there's just so much evidence that that's the case, that it's worth not forgetting.
I should put something in there. I should put something in the further read. I've done loads of stuff. I read more on this than you really care.
I know.
A lot of it's really quite boring. So, anyways, to sum up this little section, a couple of slides to sum up this section. Jordan, this one's yours, isn't it?
It is. It is. So
What's it saying?
this is the point that everybody understands these days, that the consumer benchmark, if you like, has changed the way we look at how technology experiences can be delivered and consumed. And the enterprise benchmark has traditionally been, there's been a big delta between those two over the past 5 years or so. And that's because of the meteoric rise of the consumer technology experience and the fairly slow improvement in enterprise experience. And it's not fair to say anymore that these two are static benchmarks. The enterprise experience is, I think it's fairly accepted that it is a slower or lower benchmark than that's delivered by the consumer world. But we are seeing customers making real strides in this space, some more than others. Some are moving more slowly, some are moving quicker, but everybody is moving up this stack and trying to close that gap. The challenge out there is how quickly you're able to close that gap versus your competitors, and how transformative that will have an effect on your business.
That's it, because you can close the gap and make people lots of happy with lots of stuff and actually just spend money, but
Absolutely.
not get a result from
Making
it.
sure that's aligned to the objectives of the business
There's an
is critical.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's an interesting subtlety here, though, in that anyone who's rolled out a new system, new version of Windows, just take a really simple example.
Yeah.
I mean, what's the first thing that happens on the Monday morning that you've done that? People moan and groan, they call the help. Why isn't this widget here that was there before, and where's this option gone, and all this kind of stuff.
I used to have a little picture of a thingy, there used to be a start button,
Exactly. So their point of reference when you gave them something new was, what did I have last week? Now, increasingly, their point of reference is, what do I have at home? When I'm sitting on the sofa browsing the latest magazine or whatever, I'm probably sitting there with a tablet. The Reg, obviously, so their point of reference has shifted, and so giving them new stuff now isn't the same as it was maybe a few years ago, in that they're probably already familiar with a lot of the stuff that you're going to roll out. So that removes a big barrier to lots of traditional blockers. The other thing, though, is I think it puts a lot more emphasis on how ready is this stuff, because a lot of technology works really well in a consumer environment. Does it work well in an enterprise environment? So I think we should pick that up as we go through this.
All right, and this other part is, this is summing up the idea, this different user expectation, isn't it?
That's right. Today's workplace, or the workplace of yesterday, has been defined by what IT has been able to deliver. Whereas the fundamental shift in workplace technologies is that it now needs to be defined by what users and the business needs. So shifting from a supply-driven model to a demand-driven model. It's a subtle shift, I guess, in terms of terminology, but the implications are huge.
Well, because you also have to keep your discipline as well.
Absolutely. You can't simply, it's easy to get the consumer experience right. You throw everything up into the cloud and job done. But being able to do that, make sure it's aligned to the business objectives, make sure it's secure, make sure it's governed. We can't just throw everything into the cloud. We need enterprise IT departments who have a responsibility to keep this data safe, to make sure that business processes are being adhered to. So it's not as simple as throwing it all up into the cloud.
So we're going to have a look. So in the sort of like the main course part of this, we can have a look at these four sort of segments. Look at the foundations. You define these, don't you, Dale? There are the foundations, looking at how devices are changing and what they're going to do. We're going to talk a little bit about security and a bit about implementation. Good, you're up for it?
Absolutely.
Better get on with it then. So first of all, looking at this, let's look at the first element, the collaboration idea. Jordan, this is your...
So we've heard a lot about UC&C, Unified Comms and Collaboration, for a number of years now, and for me what it represents is the need that we have as individuals, as human beings, to collaborate with one another. And the general direction, the trend of the way that work is changing is going away from individual contribution towards ad hoc communities of interest. So being able to self-organise around a problem, solve it, and then disband, making that those workflows much more dynamic, much more flexible, and being able to respond to challenges much more quickly. And
so it could be around a project
agile.
or a campaign or a customer incident, whatever it has to be.
Yeah, it could be as small as that single problem. We have this escalation, we need to pull a team together to solve it, and that could be a 15-minute challenge, or it could be a 15-day challenge or a 15-month challenge. But the business, we don't have the luxury of having loads and loads of people to throw at challenges, to throw at problems. We have to make sure that the people that we do have are being used most effectively. And we understand, generally speaking, that people want to do the best job that they can. People want to be enabled to do the best job they can. And individuals know their roles and the outcomes that they need to deliver better than anybody else does.
Why is this a technology thing?
So technology can be the enabler to enable that to happen. So being able to have the idea of a single identity and presence, for example, to this digital representation of me as an individual that can be pulled into these different ad hoc meeting rooms or digital spaces. And being able to then communicate, to collaborate, to work, to solve problems using these technologies, which means you don't have to be in the same place. That freeing location, we've been talking about obviously the physical workspace, that's important, but being able to be free from that boundary of location is critical. And technology is absolutely the enabler to do that, whether it's voice, video, presence, unified directories, all of that is required to build a stable foundation to enable this new collaboration.
So a good way of thinking about it is human beings naturally want to do this, right? We naturally want to collaborate, talk, meet, and so on. And we've had barriers in the traditional business environment, whether it be physical location, whether it be disjointed technology that doesn't work particularly well together. And really what we're talking about here is not some sort of magic enabling people to do something new and ethereal. And it's just basically removing barriers. So allow people to remove the friction, let people do what they would naturally do anyway. And I think that's the important way to look at this.
But do you think people have got the working habits to do that, though? Because, I mean, that's the thing. Will it not take another generation of people who are accustomed to this?
I don't think it's a generational thing necessarily, but I think there is an importance that needs to be put on the way people work, that just throwing technologies out there isn't going to solve the problem.
Okay.
Allowing people to make a telephone call from their PC rather than a handheld, a desk phone, isn't going to transform the way people work. But removing the barriers between speaking to somebody through IM, and instantly being able to escalate up to voice, to video, to desktop share, to a town hall style meeting, all just like that can change the way people work.
There are lots of ingrained habits though that need to be broken because we all live with we've grown up with certain constraints and you find workarounds for those and you realise that actually a lot of the things that you do are because that's the way the technology or the way the organisation was set up forced you to do them. It's not necessarily how you want, but you just got into the habit of doing that. One of the things that I find interesting, the generational thing, I think there's an element of that. And a really good indication is we had a youngster sort of coming into our business. And I notice when he's doing IM, and he does exactly what you've said, he escalates to voice, the conversation just continues. Whereas people are my age.
I'm saying nothing.
Me too.
I've got to be careful.
What must that be like?
I know, it's quite sad, isn't it? But we're on IM. We go onto the phone, it's like, hello, how you doing? And we go through the whole handshaking thing again. Because we've got into the habit of when you pick up the phone, it's a new medium, therefore we need to sort of go through that meet and greet. I was just talking to the guy 30 seconds ago on IM. So there is a sort of freedom which comes with youngsters.
Just a very quick point on the thing. This whole user experience in doing this new collaboration is key. I don't know about you, but the number of times I sit on an audio bridge call and we spend the first 10 minutes with someone's got a bad line, someone's feedback in, I can't, someone's just coming, are you there? No, you're not there, and that sort of thing.
Mute?
Cool, exactly, I'm on mute, all right. Or everyone goes quiet and someone's on mute. And
there's a lot of background noise from someone,
exactly.
All that sort of thing. Are you going to be solving this in new Hewlett-Packard?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to solve people being noisy on conference bridges.
But I mean,
that's a pledge. You've heard it here first.
In the bigger sense, I guess there is that thing where you have to take on the whole thing. You can't just sort of say to people, here, lots of more ways to communicate badly.
Absolutely. And this experience needs to be available on any device. It needs to be available on any network. It needs to be delivered through a really optimized connection. And of course, it can't just be targeted within your organization. It has to be inclusive of partner organisations, of customers. This can't be delivered in a silo in your own organisation. It has to be inclusive.
So we have a little bit. You put in something here about the idea of sort of devices and how this affects the devices people are going to have. So what's the story?
So Devices, of course, are really important. They're the front end to this experience, right? They're the way that we interact with data, with applications. And there's been a huge rise in the number of different form factors that we have available to us, the capabilities that they have. You know, they now last all day with a single charge. You know, they're sleek, they're sexy. That's important. But what is really important is the things we get done with them, is the productivity that we get from them. And I think it's important to note that trying to shoehorn the type of productivity that we get from a desktop into a mobile device is not necessarily appropriate. So the services that you deliver, the applications that you deliver have to be context aware, have to be aware of the device that they're running on or they're being presented through. And the key is choosing the type of productivity most appropriate for that device. Now, a few years ago, we used to talk about touch devices, tablets, smartphones being consumption devices. And I had a bit of an issue with that because consumption feels like it's a passive action. So we renamed that. We started to talk about action productivity. So when you can receive a piece of information, piece of business information or anything else, but then act upon it rapidly. That's the real benefit of these devices in the enterprise, is speeding up business rather than trying to, design the next bridge on your smartphone. People will always navigate back to the most appropriate device for that particular type of productivity. And you see on the other end of that spectrum, we term that creative productivity.
So, to be practical about this then, are we saying that the direction of travel for the IT department is to be pretty much agnostic about what it's delivering to, what device it's delivering to, just be able to deliver the application in a way that's context aware?
I think agnostic suggests that we don't care what's on the front end, and I think you have to in order to deliver the best user experience, right? So the way you tempered the question at the end was to make it context aware.
Yeah.
And I think if you're truly context aware, you can't necessarily be agnostic, but the direction of travel, absolutely, to be able to make sure that the services and the information that you're trying to get access to is appropriate for the form factor that you're using.
I think it's a bit of both, actually, in that for professional users, managers, consultants, and so on, absolutely, you need to be as agnostic as you can at what goes on at the edge, or to what goes on at the edge. But if you're rolling out 5,000 devices to a bunch of engineers in the field, you absolutely want consistency, bulletproof delivery, bulletproof support, all the logistics that go behind it. So there are situations in which you still want that traditional standardization, but for those professional users, you do want as much flexibility at the edge as possible.
And I guess that goes to the point of what's really important.
Yeah.
Is the rock solid stability for this user group the key point? Is trying to re-engage with an exec who's, you need to give him the bright and shiny things. That's a different priority, but you're absolutely right.
So Malcolm, this is yours. You're the man in charge of this. You've got to deliver this. Because you're inside. You're inside all these little
Inside a lot
things.
of stuff. Yes. And as you might expect me to say, we do. The devices still matter. And actually, this slide here sort of develops a little bit of the theme that I think Jordan touched on earlier about business users behaving more like consumers and coming from that consumer mindset. And looking backwards, it used to be all the latest sleek, sexy, funky devices were in the consumer market. And this is saying actually now the business devices are also, all the latest whizzy different form factors to suit the different uses for the different type of thing are available across the business market now. And so that complete range and shift, the business market has kind of caught up in terms of wide range of devices for use for all the different functions in business now.
But I mean, my thing about this is it's quite attractive as an idea. If you pitch up at a job to say, well, I like doing these sort of things on my smartphone, and and I'll do some other things on a laptop. I'm not interested about that sort of tablet thing. We don't even have to tell people that. That's just conversation. You'll just get on and do your things. It's nobody else's business. So you don't even have to mention it to anyone like that. And that's great, in the same way as you would buy from Amazon or something. And you don't have to say it. Is that really sensible, or are we going to run into some terrible, terrible complexity problems for that?
So there are two dimensions to this. One of them is type of user, which we've said. The other one is what exactly are you delivering? So there are some things where you absolutely want end-to-end monitoring, management, security, and so on. But they're becoming the exception rather than the rule. The more you can move things back into the server side, so authentication, delivery, device awareness, and keep it. So you're kind of doing that old traditional stuff by exception rather than by as the norm.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Now here are your exciting new things.
Yes.
Is there anything we can pre-announce here? We've done it in the past, and nothing bad's ever happened to it.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So this is some of the whizzy new stuff, and this kind of plays across a couple of areas, and this is partly about making that user experience better. Getting rid of some of the wires in the world
I
of
noticed wirelessness.
You see, wireless is a big theme, sort of thing. Yeah, being able to walk into a meeting room, swipe or touch a button and wirelessly up comes your gear. Being able to put your device on a desk and it will just wirelessly dock up to all of the things. Put it on a desk and it will wirelessly charge itself. It takes away a lot of the aggravations of end users in their day-to-day life, and hence makes them more productive. And maybe the other point just to kind of bring out on here is this world of moving to more standards. We talked earlier and said there's more hot desking, there's that type of thing. So if you look at say a laptop device today, there's two connectors on it which are not standards. Your Ethernet connector, USB, they're standard, but there are two which are unique per set of devices, which is the docking connector and the power connector. And so if we can move those into a standards as well as wireless, so you get some user experience and standards base, this makes this whole world of flexible working, hot desking, any device, roll up, dock it, charge it, and so on. A whole load easier.
Yeah, because the unfortunate reality is, say for example, when you do force people to come in and get them all in a meeting room, there's 15 minutes of how can you connect the thing to the thing to get the thing to work, and
that world of dongles and things.
Exactly, and there's a bloke called Kevin who comes, who people know who to call, and he comes in and says, there you go. And and that's how it works at the moment. So what we talk about here is a lot of people in the audience thinking, it's not going to work where we go. So basically on sort of standards on wirelessness on display. So how does that work?
How does it work?
What will I see?
It runs over a Wi-Fi connection. You just touch a button, and you walk into the meeting room, touch a button on your screen, wirelessly up comes all of your content on the meeting room screen, and with the right tech, which is out there now, you can, if you're calling into this meeting from home, you can watch the screen content, you can put your screen content up there, you can annotate, mark up the stuff, and so on. So a whole load of extra features, functions, flexibility, and a lot easier to use. I should say, actually, I shouldn't say it's Jordan, but my laptop is an HP laptop. It's a great laptop.
You're welcome to say that.
It's a great laptop. The one weak spot I've had, the trouble I've had.
Yeah, let's get to that bit.
Exactly. The one weak spot I've had is the dongle for connecting to the display. That is the bit that's died on me twice. The laptop is great, but that dongle. So we're going to get rid of those things
immediately.
Exactly.
Rectified for you.
This is how we get things done at the Regcast.
Yes, exactly.
Good. Let's take that offline. Let's stick to
the after hours. Right?
Let's do that. So wireless data. I'm assuming that if our audience is unaware of wireless data, then they haven't been concentrating.
Yeah, so it can mean lots of things, but the direction we're heading, say someone's got this big, huge file of the Register webcast, and I've got it on my laptop, and I want to give it to you, Tim. We may not want to have it, but what I don't want to have to do is I'd find USB sticks, put it up on Dropboxes. If I can just come up here and say, there you go, it's wirelessly straight onto your device, that's really nice, and that's where we're headed.
Where security comes.
We'll get to security.
I've lived it, mate. I don't want it back.
I tell you, sometimes when I talk to IT groups, and you see the security team go into a nervous breakdown at that point.
I see your point. Provided that provide these security things done, the idea of there shouldn't be that whole thing of how do I send this to you. Wireless docking.
Yeah, that's here. That's here today. It's in its early sort of guises, running something called WiGig technology, very high bandwidth, short distance. Put the device on the desk, and it wirelessly docks to the screen, the network, the keyboard, the mouse, and so on.
Yeah.
And as we move forward, lots more of that will start rolling out in capabilities, and it's industry standard stuff. It's WiGig, one of the new 802.11 standards. So really nice, really convenient, and standard.
Good stuff. Wireless charging. That's the one.
So that's the interesting.
Wants,
that's the one. You know, so
That's
you
the
can,
big one.
Yeah, exactly. That is the big one. So you already see out there some charging covers for mobile phone type of things.
They've got that advert with the woman who comes in the studio.
Yeah. So the bigger the device gets, then the more power you've got to charge. So there's more engineering challenges. So suffice to say, without getting drawn into pre-announcements or whatever, that wireless charging for tablet and notebook devices is there. It's on the it's in the horizon for coming down. I couldn't say when things will actually appear in the marketplace, but I should say standards really important here. You absolutely don't want a world going forward where your whatever device that is, let's say it's a HP, because clearly that would be right device, but this table here will charge your HP device, but if you want to charge your, I don't know, Samsung or iPhone or whatever, then you better put it on that table, and your Dell, exactly. And if you want Dell, Paris of thought,
put it down in the wrong place.
Put it in the wrong place. So it's really important that everybody's running off the same standards here. So there's a lot of standards works going on, and products coming out to the market soon.
Okay, so these things. How much of this is a constraint on the way that we work at the moment, Dale? I mean, does this come into the nice to have, or are these real problems?
This falls into the category. A lot of this falls into the category of if you were to pin people down and say how much you really need this, can you make a business case for it today? They would probably struggle. If you give them it and then try and take it away after 3 months, they'll be kicking and screaming, and they'll say, no, I could not live without this. And I think it's that kind of technology.
It's like the smartphones sort of thing. No, they asked for it before they were around.
And they're all aggregates, right? As you build these layers of nice to have on nice to have, it becomes truly transformative, potentially.
It increases the cost of losing your job if you get it taken away from you.
So the main point of this for me is if you're, there's a lot of people, there's probably some people on this call, actually, on this webcast watching, who are looking at budgets for next year that have something to do with refurbing the office or some kind of facilities overhaul. Bear this stuff in mind now, because it is close enough, if not already real, that you don't want to be constructing an office for the next 10 years based on the old wired way of doing things, because that makes no sense.
Wireless charging is coming in 2016.
I never said anything. I don't know. I couldn't comment.
That point on wireless is really important, because the wireless network has been kind of seen as a nice to have, actually. That as long as we've got the wired ports on the desk, then everybody's good. But as we're moving to more and more mobile voice and video, and the stuff that you're talking about here with wireless displays, that's all throwing more and more incredibly large volumes of traffic out onto your wireless network. And the wireless network that you built for guest access 3 years ago just ain't going to cut it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it does have big implications on infrastructure and so on.
Now, on a bigger thing, this is in your inbox, Jordan.
That's right.
To sort these things out for your customers.
And it's kind of just taking that narrative to the next level. So Malcolm talked about walking into the room and pressing a button and the wireless display just happens. I would say, why need to press the button? The room should know that you're in there. Understand who you are, where you are, and what you need to be doing, and the room should be smart enough to be able to support you in that. Whether it's in a conference room setting, it would be great if we just walked in here and all of the mics set themselves up and all of that, but we may not be there in a studio space anytime soon, but in the enterprise landscape.
You're not going to be there in the register. Let's say that. Other studios, but I mean, on a serious point for this, again, is this something that, is this a real constraint on meetings? Most people say the problem with meetings is the wrong people there, they don't know what they're doing and they don't know what decision they're trying to make. We can't help them, can we? We can't sort that out.
We can start to reduce the friction between the way people are interacting.
Yeah.
And that makes a difference.
Okay.
So making it easier for people to communicate, making it easier for people to collaborate, making the challenges that we have working with, and I have no problem working with Malcolm, but for an example, if we had a problem,
It's been a bit tested
we're
so
doing
far,
okay
but-
so far.
Yeah.
But removing any barriers that there are between us enables us to work more efficiently and more effectively. And there are so many different contexts that can be digitally enabled. And ID was the first transformative one for IT, right? Moving from just this kind of generic service delivery towards personalized service delivery. So
Yeah.
I can send you your applications or give you your data. And location is going to be the next one. Knowing who you are and where you are can make spaces, physical spaces, whether they be, physical or digital spaces, much more important and much more intelligent. And the idea of bringing those two worlds together is really important because we've got all these tools, as you were saying, in the digital landscape to help us collaborate. We can share this document immediately, we can ink on this, we can annotate that, we can, with Office 2016, we can start to co-author documents. That's all in the digital realm. But then when you come into a meeting, you're kind of stuck with a whiteboard on the wall, and if you're lucky, a plasma screen. If you're not lucky, you've got a 5-year-old projector that's not reproducing any colours, and that can be better, and it needs to be better in order to bring people back into the office, in order to get people working more effectively.
There was a guy I was interviewing a couple of weeks ago actually, and he was talking about exactly this. They went through this process of pushing everyone out of the office into home offices, hot desking, hoteling, whatever you want to call it, and they suddenly figured out that actually they were losing out a lot because people weren't having that face-to-face experience. Now, I also think that is an important part of the mix. But when they did bring people back in the office, suddenly everything was looked archaic because, as you quite rightly say, if we're meeting and I want to just pull up a document, I didn't realise 2 minutes ago that document was going to be relevant to the meeting. I just go bosh if it's a virtual meeting and it's there. We can all see it. Yep. In a meeting room, that's actually quite hard to do.
Well, so, can you hand me the cable? I'll just get this. Hang on a minute.
Exactly.
Yeah. I've just got to log in. It's in the other. Yes.
There's enough human barriers without having the arcane technology barriers as well.
In a funny kind of way, the virtual world has leapfrogged the physical world in terms of meeting management. And,
here's an interesting. Yeah, there's just an interesting one. We can't spend a huge amount of time on that, but someone's asking in detail what the components of a smart meeting room. What's
Absolutely.
in a smart meeting room then?
So a communication and collaboration solution such as Skype for Business to run the meeting, to handle the voice, handle the video, handle the digital collaboration elements. Bluetooth low energy beacons in order to detect proximity, which would communicate with the devices that you bring into the room.
What things are in there.
So it knows what things, and then if those devices are personal to you, which, let's face it, our smartphones are the most personal devices that we have, they're tied to me as an individual, so you can make that mapping. So now not only is this device in the room, but I'm in the room, and let's make the assumption that I have my laptop with me, then it starts to go through these workflows. So you need some kind of workflow engine, and there are IoT orchestration engines that are coming to the market that can tie all of these things together. And of course...
So what's that doing?
That's effectively representing in the digital world these physical objects. So you would have nodes that represent the room itself, nodes that represent the individuals, nodes that represent any of the physical equipment that's in there, the screen, the devices, and functionally ties them together with some logic between each step, which can add that intelligence.
Okay.
And of course, you need wireless. You need high quality wireless technology in order, so we're talking 802.11 AC, Wave 2, wireless capability that is going to be able to handle all of that data that's going over the network. If the wireless network is starting to crumble, you're still using your 3-year-old guest network, that's not going to be able to support that level of interaction. So we've got wireless, Bluetooth Low Energy beacons and proximity awareness, a enterprise-grade collaboration solution, Skype for Business, put a Surface Hub in there, and of course the people themselves and the devices that they interact with.
Good. All right, good answer.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Do you want me to add on to it or not? If we want to move on, because time's running away with us.
Well, what we do is we've got actually, we're going to record. I'm going to record a little after hours interview with you guys, and I'd like to go into a little bit of this stuff in more detail there. We've got more time.
Let's do it.
And that'll be, be good about what the workplace is actually going to look like. We'll do it that way.
That works,
so hold on for that. It'll be on demand. We won't get that live, unfortunately, but it'll be on demand and it'll be up, and we'll get lots of detailed information there. I hope that helps. Let's have a look at security though, because we need a few minutes just to talk about that. We can't bake the whole security pie again, Dale. But tell me why it's here.
I think this is just looking at security as part of the user experience.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about that. And all this chart is saying, this is from a study we did with Reg readers earlier in the year, and it's basically saying, look, it's the old familiar problem that if you're overbearing with putting security measures in place, then users will find a way around them and you kind of defeat the object. So and this principle, if you turn it on its head, is about saying, okay, security needs to be invisible ideally, but if not, it needs to be very comfortable, very seamless, very smooth, and an integral part of the overall customer experience.
Because I'd worry about the 11% who got users who don't have the gumption to try and
and to try and self-optimize.
Exactly. Right? They're not trying hard enough, or maybe they're just not telling you.
But that's not new behaviour, is it? People have always been doing that, but it's now just so much easier to jump out into the consumer cloud landscape, throw your sensitive documents onto Dropbox because you've got a job to do. People aren't doing this just for fun. They need to share that document, they need to do it quickly, and the services that are being delivered by IT, which whilst they're rock solid and secure, that was just simply too hard, so I've gone around you.
So Malcolm, you're big into this.
Yeah, I'm going to give you two perspectives on security. First, an Intel IT, so it's not really a product thing, but what from an IT mindset that we see, and increasingly with this change that we've been talking about for the time, it's next to impossible to lock down your enterprise sort of edge in such a way that you're not vulnerable at some level. So you've got to somehow trust or establish some trust of the people and the devices that are trying to access your services. And so a way that we're doing it inside Intel now is running an environment where when someone tries to access one of these services, there's an establishment, first of all, of what level of trust, who's trying to access, what capabilities are they trying to access, and on what device are they doing that access from. And given that level of trust that you see out there, you enable or disable certain levels of capabilities. And then we're kind of like springing that into the product side of things. It says, so going forward, you need to be able to trust these devices more and more. And so one of the directions as these new laptops, tablets, etc. roll out is to put more and more security down inside the hardware, inside the chips of the system. And far too much for the time we have available, but to say it's far harder to hack through security bits and pieces that are embedded down into the chip. So you can make the security capabilities of these end devices much more robust if you start integrating some hardware security into your solution. That lets you establish more trust with the devices trying to access your services, and that lets you enable more capabilities seamlessly. As Dale said, the best security is totally invisible. And so people can do more, can access this capability without compromising the IT security to an unacceptable level. That's a lot of waffle, maybe. But
no. I get what you're saying, Dale. I've seen some research, not yours, I don't think, in the last year or two. Saying that the immediate response to this sort of thing is to say, let's lock the thing down even more, and the more that they beat it, the more you try to lock the users down. And we're saying that's at the end. We're saying that's a fool's errand, are we?
Oh, it is. Yeah. There's, in fact, there is some Reg research which looks at exactly that. And what's really interesting is it's getting the right blend between technology and user awareness and user training. So one of the things that we need to bear in mind in all of this is that users aren't doing this kind of thing, climbing over security barriers for any other reason than they don't really realise what the consequences are. They see it as something in the way of what they want to do, but they don't really see the harm that can come from them working around it. So a big part of ensuring end user security is just making users aware. Give them too much to do, because human beings can only cope with so much. if you give them a really complex multi-factor login,
Yeah.
very onerous kind of authentication mechanism, one for this application, another one for this app, you've used up all their bandwidth to worry about how they look after themselves and behave safely. You take a lot of those barriers away, make a lot of it implicit, push it down the stack as much as possible, embed ID and authentication into as much as you possibly can. Users can start thinking about the logical, actually, should I be sending this document to this person? Which is you want them to be thinking at that level, not distracted by the low-level stuff. That, I think, is the key to this.
And we have to kind of assume and trust that these people, of course, want to do the best job that they can, and they want to abide by the rules that the organisation sets. It just has to be easy to do it and not get in the way of the great job that they want to do.
Yeah,
I should say too, devices can get smarter going forward. For example, a device can know if it's within the enterprise, in the office building, seeing its trusted networks, and that can be used as part of the authentication. So you say, I trust this device when it's inside the work environment more than if it's being used out in Starbucks. And therefore, what I allow it to do, or what authentication the user needs to provide to use it, is at different levels in those environments. Because now the device has become smart. It kind of is aware of its environment and its context. And so the devices can be a big part to play in making that sort of
technology
seamless
is available
user
to do that now, isn't it? Just not widely used.
Not widely used,
Yeah.
and it's going to grow as we go forward.
It should be. Just as we make the junction now, because we're just going to talk about some sort of software in a minute. I'll just stick the slide up there because we can talk about Microsoft software. Michael has asked, what comes first here? Is it the transformational devices or the software? I mean, basically, have we got the software that's actually forcing us into devices, or because we've got the devices, we think, let's use that application? Which one?
I think seeing them as two separate issues is challenge number one, right? So I'm going to take the consultant's answer out there, which is you have to look at them together. We have to look at not how we're delivering software and how we're delivering devices, it's how we're delivering productive end user experiences or productive services. You can't look at whether we're delivering this device or that device and then go to the software piece. This is an end-to-end discussion, which actually brings us on to this ecosystem discussion, right? Yeah. We have to look at this service delivery as that ecosystem play, and being able to split them out is very difficult.
But there's a very practical way of looking at answering that question, I think, and that's that if you look in most organisations, devices are like a conveyor belt. You take laptops, you take smartphones, you take anything. Old ones come in, old ones drop off one end, new ones come in at the other end.
Yeah.
So when you put this kind of infrastructure in place that you've just been talking about, there is a good chance that some of the older devices, the ones that are going to fall off the conveyor belt pretty soon anyway, are going to struggle.
Yep. Yep.
So you highlight those and you say, right, we've got to bite the bullet and replace those. That doesn't mean you have to replace all of your devices. Yep. The other thing, so that's point number one. Point number two is there are then some very specific types of users that will probably benefit from some of the new funky features that Malcolm was talking about, and really will have a productivity boost. That's not going to be everyone. So there's going to be a group of users there that you might want to give the latest stuff, the absolute latest stuff to, with the latest bells and whistles. So if you focus on those two groups, actually that eases the whole problem. There's a whole chunk of stuff in the middle that, from a device perspective, will work with that and we'll be able to benefit from it.
That's a little bit like the ring mechanism that Microsoft are using to roll out Windows 10. So there's kind of people that are on that fast ring that need to, for whatever reason, they need to be refreshed more frequently because they're higher value individuals, or they do different things, and then the slower rings that go around the outside where maybe it's not so important to get the bells and whistles, absolutely, as you say.
I was having the idea that Microsoft now has a ring mechanism. Anyway, the Microsoft. So we're talking about Microsoft technology. Why did you bring that specifically the Microsoft technology up?
I think we brought this up because Windows 10 is upon us, right? And we've seen, whether we like it or not, and the feedback that we're getting is that the feedback is broadly very, very positive. But we have seen over the past 20 years that a new desktop refresh, a new desktop release catalyzes the transformation of end user workplaces. We've seen that historically. And whether we're going to see the same approach with Windows 10 and being the kind of more of a big bang approach, I don't think we're going to see that. I think we're going to see more of the conveyor belt approach. As people or as devices fall off the edge, they're going to be replaced with Windows 10 machines. But I haven't spoken to a customer yet who isn't considering Windows 10, who isn't excited about what the capabilities bring. But the reason they're so excited, and the reason we're so excited at Hewlett Packard, is that it's very much an integrated ecosystem play now. You know, Microsoft are doing a very, very good job with their cloud-first strategy at bringing their services not only to Windows devices, but being inclusive across all devices and potentially all organisations.
What's an integrated ecosystem play? What does that mean?
Have I just fallen into?
Yes, you've just said you said a bad thing.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yeah.
Thank you for
that's fine.
Pulling me up on that. So there is a stack of Microsoft products out there which are all designed to add value to each other. So in fact, even calling it a stack is not giving it its due anymore. The fact that Office 365 has significantly more value if you have Skype for Business, which together have significantly more value if you really invest in Azure Active Directory, which again together gives Windows 10 much more of value to an organisation. So the sum of each of those elements are much greater than, or the whole is much greater than the sum of their parts.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you agree with this, Dale?
Well,
you'll have to be quite quick.
Okay. What you've said has always been the case with Microsoft, and if you use it all together, you get more out of it. I think the difference is that Microsoft has worked hard to try and open up a lot of the technology as well. So it's no longer as proprietary as it was.
I was going to say, and it's not just old-fashioned vertical integration.
It is, if you look at it in that way. But okay, so very, very briefly, what we find all the time is that people don't want lock-in. They don't want to avoid lock-in, but at the same time, they don't want a lot of integration effort. So the ideal world is one in which you're delivered something that all works together.
Yeah.
But if you want, you can replace that bit with something completely different. And that I think is where Microsoft is headed. And well, it's actually got there in lots of respects, I would say.
They're significantly more flexible, and the attitude that Microsoft have brought to the market over the past couple of years is refreshing.
Very quickly, I'm just going to add one more thing. I think we see lots of press about Windows 10 and start menus and all sorts of other UI stuff.
Don't look at me, I'm not writing it.
It's not about that. Windows 10 is the tip of the iceberg of a big
integrated ecosystem play.
Integrated ecosystem play. And this is important for Reg readers because we hear every time we survey, Microsoft is just part of the woodwork, People have got huge investment in skills and infrastructure. Windows Server is kind of part of the furniture. So it all builds on that.
Okay, yeah, point taken. Can you explain this in about a minute, Jordan?
I can. So we call this our digital workplace framework, and it gives us the ability to show how organisations or what elements of a digital workplace transformation need to be considered in order to shift the needle, in order to really transform away from a traditional workplace to the next generation workplace that we've been talking about today. And there are 6 key elements. There's the communication and collaboration elements that we've talked about, getting that as a rock solid foundation, transforming your productivity platform, so around Windows 10, around your applications, making sure you've got next generation connectivity to support the interactions that you need, and of course never forgetting the people and process that wrap around this. You can't change the way people work just with technology. You need to be able to change the way that they respond to those technologies and support them in the way that they work. And of course, never forgetting the requirement to secure and protect that environment, as well as manage and automate it. That's our digital workplace framework in 60 seconds.
Is the whole idea of the new Hewlett Packard thing that is to do all of those things? Basically. All of those things and only those things.
And more.
Okay, let's.
I want to say one important thing here. If you're doing this because your users are moaning and you just want to get them off your back, and you don't have very senior buy-in to do transformational change within your business, you're not going to succeed.
It's not going to happen.
This has got to be driven. You've got to have senior buy-in to this.
Absolutely.
Good. Quick plug.
Okay, and to take that point forward, alignment is key to that. So how are we getting alignment between IT and the business? Hewlett Packard has a one-day service that enables that We pull together senior stakeholders that should be involved in the digital workplace transformation. We explore that transformation very rapidly across a whole number of lenses in order to give you an output of a actionable, strategic and aligned roadmap for the transformation that we've been discussing here
Okay,
today.
so that's exactly to me the biggest problem for a lot of people watching it is kind of like, what are you actually asking me to do?
So being able to answer that question, how do we build the roadmap very rapidly, is what this service offers.
Right, we're out of time, guys. That's it. We've got no more time for you. Yeah, thank you very much for your, to Malcolm and Jordan and Dale, for your opinions.
Thank you for having us.
It was quite sparky. And thank you very much for your questions. And we hope you enjoyed it. Let us know what you thought of it. We do more of what you want. Well, they do, I don't. That's been my last Regcast. So I'd like to say, for my relationship with you guys, it's been real. And so from Register, goodbye.